All right, everybody. I am excited. We're live. We got a ton of people cycling into the room. So welcome, welcome. We are so excited to bring this content to you. We're going to be talking about Azure Government Virtual Machines. Now, I know technical diagram, watch out, but this is about the simplest diagram that you're going to see. And I think we considered whether to put this slide in or not, but the reality is I think you just have to because it shows the bubble. So, do I have annotation tools on here? Let's see. I do. You guys, I love to draw on the screen for you. I think it's just maybe the easiest way to explain it. So, couple of concepts. Number one, devices outside of Azure government can be insecure and non-compliant. Okay. Um, it's fine. Literally, send an email off to the DoD. We asked them, is this okay? They said yes. Okay. Again, it is generally accepted that as long as there isn't information that can go back and forth between the machines through this bubble, it's fine. And all these machines do is access the bubble this way. So it's totally fine. Really huge advantage. So again, these machines right here, they don't have to be compliant. Awesome. Now, do we recommend they be compliant? Yeah, sure. I mean, for goodness sakes, on a machine, you just need good endpoint, maybe some SIEM. It's not terribly complicated to get a machine compliant. It's not terribly expensive. Now, up in Azure Government, which is going to be this whole blue bubble, right? Whole blue bubble. This is all in Azure Government, which is really cool because we know this is compliant without any doubt. First thing that happens, Azure Government Publishing Layer acts as a control plane capable of operating the connecting device from activity within the access controlled and secured environment. System separation is definitive and accepted by the DoD Office of the CIO as compliant. Done. Okay. So here's what happens. You go to log in to your resources and you get hit with a login, password, and multi-factor authentication. You don't even know what's here. Okay. You can't know what's here unless you have successfully signed in, you have a secure connection, and you have multi-factor authentication. Nobody knows what's there. Then when you do get signed in, you get here. Okay. We might have a host pool or a pool of Windows 11 desktops or virtual machines. Okay. But when you're behind this line and you haven't logged in, you don't even know that stuff exists, right? There's no way to tell. Now, once you're logged in, you'll have a choice. You can access one resource or you could access 3 resources. It just depends on what you have permission to via Azure Active Directory and permissions and all that other kind of stuff. We also wrap in here Intune and conditional access to really, really lock down access to these machines. Okay. Again, I won't, this is not really a webinar on security per se. It's a webinar teaching how to get compliant using Azure Virtual Machines, but there's a lot of different security options that we have when we're doing this. Now, resources within Azure Government, such as Office 365, GCC High, and Azure Virtual Desktops are known to be compliant and secure. Again, this is verified by the DoD Office of the CIO as compliant, or A-OK here. Pretty cool. So again, our goal when we're doing this, if you kind of look at the diagram, is all I want to do is create a nice, awesome, secure bubble. Boom. Secure bubble, everything in here is good to go. Then whatever needs to come in and get resources out of the bubble, that's isolated as well. Okay, right? It's all isolated by this publishing layer and control plane. Pretty cool, right? And honestly, this diagram makes it much easier to understand. So whatever's in the bubble is compliant. Check the box. Whatever's outside, nope, doesn't need to be compliant. All right. Hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to understand. All right, now differences between Microsoft 365 virtual machines and Azure virtual machines. Oh my goodness. All right, guys, I don't want to lose you, like my little friend over here. But there are 2 different licensing models, and I'm going to explain them. Why? Because virtual machines aren't complicated enough. Like Microsoft licensing isn't complicated enough. Man, we're a Microsoft partner for like 20 plus years, and I still don't get Microsoft licensing sometimes. I love them. All right, they put out a heck of a product, but can we just make it easier? Well, the reality is when you're designing software that accommodates every use case scenario, you know, it's pretty fair. There's going to be some complicated licensing involved. Now, What is a Microsoft 365 virtual machine? A Microsoft 365 virtual machine is a machine that is tied to a user account. I know I've been talking a lot about the idea that a user account, that a virtual machine can have multiple people logged into it. A Microsoft 365 virtual machine cannot do that. Microsoft 365 virtual machines are licensed in the same way that Office 365 GCC High is licensed. What does that mean? Number one, you got to pay every year. It's an annual payment. That means you got to pay 12 months in advance for your virtual machine. That can get expensive. I'm not going to kid you. An average virtual machine is probably about $100 to $200 a piece under this model. That means you could be paying $1,200 to $2,400 up front for a 365 virtual machine per year. So if you've got 10 employees, I mean, man, this could be like $12,000 to $24,000 up front before you even get access. Second thing is Microsoft 365 virtual machines are not multi-session. You can't really get the efficiency of scale that you can with the Azure pay-as-you-go model. So for that reason, if we're architecting the system, we're going to really question whether this is a good idea pretty hard. Now, there's some good news. 365 virtual machines are flat rate. That means they can be on 24/7. You don't need to do anything special to them in order to make sure that effectively you're just going to pay a flat rate for the whole year on that machine. Okay. That's good for a lot of people. They have to budget, and sometimes budgeting is a greater concern than actually how much they pay, especially in larger institutions. If you're a small business owner and you're scratching your head at that comment, I understand. It doesn't make any sense. But trust me, when you deal with larger enterprises, sometimes how you pay for things is more important than how much you pay for things. So Microsoft 365 virtual machines, again, tied to the user, flat rate, and may not be able to really make the most out of these resources. Also, if you delete a user, the machine goes away with it. It's like a license. It's like Office 365. Their mailbox doesn't get saved. The virtual machine doesn't get saved either. But there is another advantage, which is 365 virtual machines are automatically backed up. So I would call 365 virtual machines a really, really good solution when you've got one or two or three users and that's it. That's usually the scenario that we're going to recommend a 365 virtual machine. When there's not really that much efficiency to be gained, when the annual payment is not such a big deal, $5,000-$6,000 probably not a really big deal for a 5-person company. I mean, every penny counts. Don't get me wrong, but let's be realistic here. If you're in defense, and again, 365 virtual machines, again, they're just kind of meant to be like an easy button, and they work really well. They do. However, also, they have to be purchased through an AOSG licensing partner. Okay, so these are the special gnomes that Microsoft has said, I will bless thee with the ability to sell under 500 seats of a government license. Again, these are AOSGs, they're government licensing partners. The good news is we work with several AOSG partners. We have some favorites because they just simply charge book rate instead of marking it up. Again, we can help you with that. If you're looking at licensing an Office 365 GCC High or Azure Government Solution, I strongly recommend that you come to us. We will essentially broker the deal. I have $0 we make off of licensing. We make our money off, I'll just be honest with you, we make our money off the implementation, right? The setup that you need help with, and then the ongoing management of the whole thing. That's where we make our money. I don't take any kind of money involved in licensing. It's not our business. And that's a big piece of recurring payment for you. So if I can actually help you to achieve efficiency in your licensing, which we almost always do, we will literally pay for our services that way. And that's always been another kind of recurring theme with on-call is we really try hard, especially in defense, to make it so that we pay for ourselves and then some. Great example, we help our defense contractors win more defense work with higher profit margins, which basically pays for our services and then some. We like to be a net positive. Another example is we help them negotiate the cost of compliance into their contracts. It's huge, and we love doing it. We love helping our partners. Now, they're tied to user accounts. We talked about that. They do have more limited usage. So again, there's some things you can't do with Microsoft 365 virtual machines. Again, they get into more complex network architecture, servers, hybrid joined Active Directory instances. I don't want to go there in this webinar, but there are some limitations. So again, we want to be careful when we're speccing out the idea of using these licenses.